There we go. We are back. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. And given the volume of conversation I heard, I think there was some great socializing happening as well. So we're going to carry on with the second half of our program. And I am very, very pleased to introduce a remarkable woman, a courageous woman who has shared her remarkable journey with the Ottawa Hospital. Tracy Bacenas is a longtime Ottawa resident, a mother of two, and an accomplished storyteller. Listen to this. With a career spanning some of television's most recognizable series, including Survivor, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and many of their spin-offs. So I'm not going to have a show of hands if anyone's watched The Bachelorette or The Bachelor. But after many years of working in a fast-paced entertainment industry in the U.S., Tracy moved to Ottawa with her husband and her children, and Ottawa is home. So we had the pleasure of telling Tracy's story through many platforms, including having her visit with our staff, and it is my pleasure to welcome her to the stage this evening.
There we go. I'm going to stay in one spot. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful for me to be able to meet so many of you behind this wonderful organization and to see some of my amazing medical care team here in person outside of hospital walls. A few years ago, my life was very different than it is now. I was living my best life, I would say. I moved here to Ottawa to raise our children. My husband, Jason, and I wanted to have a slower pace sort of environment for our kids, so we moved here, moved to Manotick, and I was able to continue my career that I started in Los Angeles, editing shows, as were mentioned, from home. So I was able to continue editing remotely, and everything was going really, really great. And I had a very active lifestyle with two sons that just turned 16 who were very athletic, and my husband who loves sports. I kind of try to keep up with them, so we did a lot of hiking and running and camping, and any travel that we did was centered around activity. And I really loved being active. It was a really huge part of my life. So in 2023, we went to New York City. That's where Jason and I met, was in New York. And so we go there occasionally to just revisit and walk the streets of some of the neighborhoods and experience New York at street level. And we took our kids. And you know how it is in New York. You walk and you walk and you walk and you walk. And that's what we did. And I noticed a pain starting in my hip, my left hip. And I've had some joint pain in my life, a little inflammation. So I kind of brushed it off and pushed through it like I do. And we got home and I continued doing the walks. Like I walk kilometers every day because I have to get my face out of the computer. So I would go for kilometers long, like walks around trails, around our neighborhood. And so I continued doing my walks, but I started limping and the pain got worse. And one day I almost called Jason to come and pick me up because I was like at the end of my walk to come back and I thought I'm not gonna make it back. And then I couldn't go up the stairs when I got home. So I called my doctor and I went to see her and she ordered an x-ray. So I went to get the x-ray and I just remember the day that that report dropped into my chart. I was sitting in a parking lot and I opened it up on my phone and I'm just kind of scanning the report thinking it's not going to be anything. And there's like, okay, a lesion, what does that mean? And then at the very bottom there's a line that said, chondrosarcoma cannot be ruled out. And I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Of course, it was a Friday. I couldn't find out. So I was just like beside myself. I was nervous, I was scared, I didn't know what to think. So I'm a storyteller. Naturally, what I do is find bits and pieces of information and put it together so that it makes sense. So I did a little research and found out chondrosarcoma is a rare form of bone cancer that can be difficult to treat. And it can often occur in the pelvis or hip region. So I was like, okay, wait, this doesn't fit my story. Like, this story block is not going here. This is not the plan I have. My narrative structure is like this. I'm gonna retire and we're gonna walk all the cities of the world. No. So I called my sister, Amber. My younger sister's a doctor in BC. I let her see the report and I said, what does this mean? And she said, don't be ridiculous. This is a very rare cancer. You don't have chondrosarcoma. They're just checking. You just have a lesion, don't worry. And so I couldn't stop thinking about it, of course, right? And my gut was just like really, really like eating at me. Like, I'm really scared. Like, I'm scared of this. So more scans were ordered. And then I was referred to an orthopedic oncologist. And that's when my husband and I went and met Dr. Joel Warrior at his office. And Dr. Warrior confirmed my worst fear and told me that I did indeed have chondrosarcoma. And I just remember like physically turning upside down in the office. Like, I put my head down by the floor and I just kept saying, Jason, do something. Like, tell Dr. Warrior I don't have chondrosarcoma. and Dr. Warrior was calming me down and he said, I can save your life, I can save your leg, but you are gonna be disabled. This is a cancer that can't be treated with chemotherapy or radiation. The only solution is surgery. And because my pelvis and hip were involved, this was a surgery that meant taking out the majority of my pelvic bones and my entire hip, like en bloc. And then what, right? So how do you hear that? It's like, okay, how do you hear that? Your whole life is defined by hiking and running and jumping and playing basketball and traveling to cities and walking for miles and miles. And when I wake up, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. What do you mean? Like, what does that mean? It was really hard to process that. I thought about my sons. I thought about my husband, my sister, Amber, who's my hiking buddy. And I thought of all the trips not taken, all the walks not walked, the steps not taken. And it was the hardest day of my life. But, you know, then something shifted. And Dr. Warrior told me, because I was strong and active, that I might be a candidate for this really innovative option. So instead of having like a flail hip, which is just everything is removed and it heals as it heals and you're quite disabled, that maybe I could have this 3D printed implant. And I was like, okay. So it's this like 3D printed pelvic implant with porous metal so that your bone kind of like grows into the porous parts and sort of fuses to sort of help build a more stable pelvis over time so that you could possibly walk again, like with a cane or something, right? And I was like, let's do it. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to walk again. So, you know, it was really cutting edge. It was personalized. So the 3D printed part that fit into my body was created specifically like a puzzle piece to fit into what they removed by the cut. And, you know, it was built for me and my tumor. And it's only been done a few times in Ottawa before that. The treatment was focused not on just surviving, but regaining some of the life that I really, really love. Over time, I had hope. So on February 14th, I had a 16-hour surgery, and it was a highly skilled, deeply committed team of people who removed the cancer and rebuilt my body. I mean, Dr. Warrior. He literally put me back together in more ways than one. So, you know, when I woke up, I was cancer-free, but everything was different. My whole life had changed, right? Overnight. What does that mean, right? I can't move. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't walk, of course. And my reality was that, like, for the next 6 weeks, I had to wear a brace that held me, like, in one position and stay in the hospital bed in the hospital for 6 weeks. And what I remember about that time when I look back is not fear. What I remember is the people who were there. They were so warm and so welcoming. And when they realized that my bed was facing the bathroom door and the wall, and I was like kind of upset about that. I was like, how can I look at this for 6 weeks? I'm gonna get really depressed. And they turned my entire room around so that I could see out the window, so I could see the sky and the birds. And it was really inconvenient. I mean, all of the tubes and lines and everything were thrown everywhere, and they had to go around it and step over, but they did that for me because they saw me and heard me. 6 weeks is a really long time to be in one position. But it wasn't lonely like I thought it would be. I was never alone because there was a flow of care and compassion, that came through the room. There was a woman who came to clean the room, and she told me stories every day about Quebec, growing up in the country in Quebec, and just great stories. And Renee was the porter who would come and get me in the wheelchair and take me to physiotherapy appointments and other kinds of appointments and scans and stuff. And she would sing and tell me stories, and she loaned me a book about animal totems. You know, it was really cool. And there was Miller. Miller was a gift. Miller helped me dress every day and bathe, and he helped me wash my hair. And he did it in such a way that preserved my dignity, and I'll never forget that. Chukarette was a nurse. She was amazing. She could come in the room, and it was like a glass of cool water over pain. And it was so soothing. Just her presence was so soothing. And Allie was the first nurse that received me after the operation, and she was like a party. She was singing and joyful and laughing, and she could tell immediately that she'd come in the room, she's like, you're having a bad day. And she would come over and she would sing to me or hold my hand, and in the nighttime when I was really at my darkest moments, she would give me pep talks to tell me I could do it. Because I tell Jason and some of my family, it was like, the pain was pretty intense, you know, and some of those nights were long. So these were not just medical interactions, these were human connections that were happening. And these beautiful people gave me hope and peace and encouragement. Healing is not just physical. It's emotional, it's vulnerable, it's deeply personal. And after 6 weeks, I went home in that brace. And Dr. Wary encouraged me to be still and keep the brace on so that my body could heal and be ready for rehab, which was going to be kind of grueling, right? Because I had just had this significant surgery, and my muscles, I was going to have to start moving them, you know, and it was going to not be fun. But I went to rehab. Dr. Trudell, who's the lead physiatrist at the rehab center, accepted me to come and stay there for 6 weeks. So I stayed there full time because I wanted to take advantage of the maximum amount of help I could get. I wanted my outcome to be as good as possible, so I wanted to do everything I could do. And I had to learn to move again. Standing was impossible, like walking was out of the question. And when I got to the rehab center, I met this compassionate team of determined people ready to help me rebuild myself and my life. And the team was led by Frankie Nento. And Frankie just lit up the room when she came in. And we worked on standing at first and balancing and confidence, you know, to stand on this new weird feeling leg. And patience, that was the big thing. Frankie had to teach me patience because I've always been somebody who just goes after something that I'm trying to do, and she would explain to me, like, you're gonna hurt yourself, so you have to stop and slow down. And she taught me to set timers and to teach me to listen to my body and listen to myself. And one day, Frankie came in with this sock aid. And I was sitting on the bed, and she's got the sock aid, and I'm like, do I really need a sock aid? Like, come on, But it's like, yes, because you cannot reach your feet. So she shows me the sock aid, and I put my sock on it, and I pull it on, and this light just like went off in my eyes and my face, because I was like, she wasn't showing me a sock aid. She was showing me how to regain my independence, that I was going to have to use different tools in order to gather together a different kind of life, still my life, a little bit different, but to use the tools and the knowledge that they had at the hospital to help me get there. And it was my first taste and glimpse of independence and my new normal. And by the time I left, I went from not being able to stand up to walking on 2 crutches, and I rode the hand crank bicycle around the courtyard before I left, which was really fun. But the journey wasn't easy. It's still not easy. I'm still recovering today. I have scans every 3 months to check for metastasis or recurrence in the local area. I do physio still. It's been 2 years. I swim. Swimming has become a huge part of my life, and swimming was really introduced to me as a tool at the rehab center. So I swim like 3 or 4 times a week. I get up in the morning, winter, summer, I go to the pool. And I still need a wheelchair for long distances. Like if we go to New York, like my poor husband Jason has to push me around in the wheelchair on the cobblestones, like in the rain. But as you can see, I can walk. I can walk again, and that is really something. So, yeah. And I'm still healing. Like to this day, things are changing, and I see these gains. And just a couple weeks ago, I was at physiotherapy, and my back was really, really hurting, and we were trying to figure out why my back was hurting so badly. And I was just in the worst pain, and I was really afraid that I was having some kind of recurrence or something. And the physiotherapist looked at me, and she's like, "Can you take your shoes off for a second?" Because I had been wearing shoes that I had to get external shoe lift put on because I was a little bit uneven. And she's like, "Something has shifted. So no more shoe lift, just an insert. So Dr. Warrior, you kept telling me that my leg length discrepancy would resolve, and it has. So you were right." Yeah. I didn't believe it, but now I have no shoe lifts, and that's awesome because I really love shoes, and it's like $150 for each shoe lift. So, it's like every single day I'm reminded of how fortunate I really am, not just because I survived, but because of how and where I survived. The Ottawa Hospital. Access to this level of care, this expertise, this innovation, right here, so close to home, was a real game changer for me. Like, if I had had to go away to get the help I needed, if I had to go without family, without friends somewhere and be alone, my story wouldn't be the same, because the healing that happened here in my community was complete. And that's why I'm here today, because my story isn't just about cancer. It's about what's possible when innovation meets hope. It's about what happens when research becomes real options for real people like me. My incredible recovery was not by accident. It was by design, because people believed in something bigger. Dr. Warrior saw the real me, and he said, "We're not just going to save your life, we're going to save your quality of life." That's the power of a team that sees you as a human worthy of great care, not just a patient. They invest in research. They drive innovations. They make it possible for patients like me to truly rebuild our lives. So when you give, you're not just funding equipment or studies. You're giving someone like me the chance to walk again. to go back to New York City with my husband, to be the best mom I can be. The Ottawa Hospital saved my life, but it's the people at the Ottawa Hospital who saved me. And for that, I'm deeply, deeply grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. You know, it's experiences like Tracy and her families that remind our team, both in the hospital but in the foundation, of why we love doing what we do. When I first met Tracy and heard her story, I thought back to a phone call that I received about 10 years ago. And at the time, we had recruited a physician from the US named Frank Ribicki. And Frank had a vision, and there was an article in the Ottawa Citizen that talked about Frank's desire to bring 3D printing to Ottawa. Shortly thereafter, I received a phone call from a woman by the name of Anne-Marie Lucas. And Anne-Marie, wonderful woman, I think about 80 years old at the time. And she said, "Tim, I would like to buy that piece of equipment so Ottawa can have a 3D printing machine." Anne-Marie made a $250,000 gift to bring that technology to Ottawa. Like, that is the power of philanthropy, to be able to fund the kind of innovations, the kind of outcomes that Tracy has so generously shared with us today.